have a special guest.
Oops, I hadn't even introduced me in a moment.
Dr. Graf Williams, which I mentioned last week. She's quite a character.
Oops.
So,
She did.
you could be relaxed, but really do pick her brain because she has some insights working with business, working with employers, that is to your advantage to hear some of these tips, some of the information she collects, and go with it. So while you think, well, this may not apply to me right now in my current situation, it may someday apply to you, and you could reflect back and say, well, I know how to handle this, or I know how to market myself at this point in time. So as I say, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Graf Williams.
Hello. Thank you. Here's the game plan. We want to do kind of a fast drive-through and overview career portfolios, because I think if you get a chance to look at the mechanics of career portfolios, then you kind of get a better place in your mind for how will you interact with the software. Because as you are going forward in this class, you actually have a couple key resources at your fingertips. Now, Dr. Wyatt here just happens to be one of the subject matter experts on career portfolios in the country too, because she's authored the book, Creating Your Career Portfolio at a Glance Guide for Professionals. And I think when you stop and look at career portfolios, a lot of times career portfolios have become this professional scrapbook to a lot of people. And so depending on when you say career portfolio, people will either frown at you or get a little nervous, or they're going to listen. Our approach as we go forward is to kind of combine the conversation today with what's measurable, how is it going to help you advance your career with career planning, and what can you do to get measurable objectives and more money. Anybody independently wealthy in here? Anybody? Because you don't need to be here, and you can have the rest of the day off, okay? We have an agreement between us that you don't need to be here, because the goal, amongst other things, is how do you use this tool to increase getting what you're worth. And so that's part of what this is about. Also, strategically, how can you use the portfolio as you advance your career to turn around and come back to an institution such as Parkland, such as a Big Ten university, and get life skill credit? Because all of you are going to go out here and be successful in your careers and acquire experience and need the chance to do that. So as you'll even find in the book that you have in front of you, there's a whole chapter that actually talks you through that process. So you have a key resource right there at your fingertips. So we're going to take a quick tour today through the concrete mechanics of career portfolio, but you too have an expert at your fingertips here who can actually coach you in the logistics of putting a portfolio together. And we're real fortunate to have had the last 5 years to work together on various projects. And actually we've done, I've lost track of how many
presentations.
Yes, and we have several more on the radar across the country that we're doing. So stay tuned for all the updates.
And another important fact to keep in mind is that everyone is at a different stage in your career. And so while we go through the process of developing a portfolio, it may mean different things to you at certain points in time in your life. So right now it may be for a job seeking. Later on it may be for evaluation. So keep in mind that this tool is a lifelong tool. It's not something you're going to do just for a grade, for a class, or just to secure a position. It's a tool that you want to maintain and keep up because there is value in the process, and we'll address that.
Oh, and then we've got to talk about work samples. It's kind of like collect now, sort later, only we're going to talk about how might you be a little more organized as you go through the magic sorting process. So we're going to advance our way through a couple things here. So as you've looked at this, the new job, the promotions, performance appraisals. You all know about performance appraisals. The employer remembers every mistake you've ever made in the last 6 weeks. Not all the good things you've done along the way. So your goal in having your career portfolio is to have the growth in your career and to be able to show them the achievement benchmarks as you go forward. Everybody with me on that? This is kind of like your secret weapon and a way to stay organized.
And it's your responsibility during a performance review or performance appraisal to make your accomplishments known, because those around you, they may not realize everything that you've done. And so again, this is the tool that you're going to be able to accomplish that, to have a dialogue going, not only the dialogue, but then also have the proof along with your responses during the appraisal. It will help with career advancement. And for those of you who've taken college courses where you're looking for additional credit for what you know, what you've learned in the workforce, it will also help with college credit, experiential learning, prior learning, assessment. Universities throughout the nation are offering that, and this portfolio will help you document that learning. It's there.
And we find most of you are so humble, you're not necessarily good at making known what your achievements are, because we haven't necessarily been brought up that way to say, oh, look at me, whereas there is a real structured way to go about presenting it in an organized way. So that's our goal here, is to be able to talk about that.
I'm going to have you shift over there.
Okay, because I'm always standing in her way. Oops.
Not all the way. Don't leave us.
Oh, there I go.
So if you want to start, we could look at what is included in a portfolio. And we have some screens. We also have a hard copy here to show you. And it's also in your book.
We've been doing career portfolios for the last 17 years inside my company. We've also been doing work with the Department of Labor and with several core industries. Now, here's what makes us different, and here's what's going to make your portfolio different. Structure. It is not just a copy of your resume and some work samples that are all slewn together in this nice, pretty book. It is something you put out there in a very structured, organized way, with your work philosophy or management philosophy, your professional goals, a resume that shows everything you've been doing, and that actually becomes the index to your competencies and your skills, followed by work samples. Now, these work samples are classified by key competency areas, including the fact that if any of you have career shifted, let's say you came out of the field of programming, computer programming, and now you want to do project management, we would take a look at your computer programming and consider that a rare talent area, but your focus area is really going to be computer programming. So I'll show you this as we go forward with planning, how you're going to use that to present it in an organized way. Any of you dead? Check for a pulse. Because if you're not, each and every one of you should have a works in progress going on. Unless you're dead, you've still got work going on, and so there should be an ongoing list of things you're doing. As we go through these things, now would be a good time. Let me show you an example of what a management philosophy looks like. And your book gives you the details on the how-tos. That's why you have this beautiful blue book. And you're going, what? This is what it is? This is how it works? It will take you longer to think about this than to actually write your management philosophy. We're sharing with you Jason Adams's management philosophy. He's a 30-something-year-old trauma nurse, finishing up his RN. He is a reservist here in Illinois, and he has done some career shifting. The way he's put himself through school is with welding, so that kind of gives you a little of his background. He comes out of rural Illinois, and he talks about his personal philosophy and builds on to this. Your job, and this is just an example, and we're doing a quick flyby, is to be able to build the same thing. You're going, wait, I want to talk about this. You get a friend, you get a chance to think about this. We spend 3 to 5 pages kind of helping you build the thought process on what a management philosophy actually is. Like we say, it'll take you a lot longer to think about it than it will to actually write it. This is really short.
This defines who you are. So think about who you are, and as Anna indicated, ask a friend to read it. Does it sound like you? Or the friend may say, you should add this, or what about this? They may see some insights that you're not actually acknowledging yourself, because sometimes we hold back when we're writing about ourselves. So this is about you. Reflects who you are, what kind of individual you are.
Because there are certain things that are unique to you, that when I get you in an interview, what's going to make you different than that other person who has the same experience? If you click on My Management Philosophy, it will take us straight back. Brief bio. Every single one of you is going to get the chance to write a bio on yourself, because when you get into that employment situation, they all are going to write one for you. It's usually better to have one written about yourself, because professionally, the HR department is going to tell you who you are. Better for you to tell them who you are. By the way, it's worth your weight in gold to get a professional photo. In my case, I need all the help I can get, so I have my professionals who also touch mine up to make me look a little thinner, make me look a little taller, you know, all the things that girls want to have, you know, so we look good.
And unfortunately, she didn't share that with me before I put my photo in, so.
Well, yes, I did.
But you want your photo, you want your bio to really give that image of who you are. It's your chance to make an impression on here.
Because we all know the HR department shows up at 5 o'clock when you've been sweating all day and crawled out under a piece of equipment, and then they want to take your picture against a white wall, okay? Don't let that happen.
We transferred back to what else to put in the portfolio after we've gone through the bio. Professional goals. Everyone should have goals, and those goals should be realistic. They should be towards their indicated professional goals, so it's not that you want to lose 20 pounds by Christmas. What are your goals for continuing your education, for career transition, or for remaining in the position that you're in? Remember, it's important for your employer to understand you may want to remain in the position that you're in. You're happy, but you have some goals that you want to make sure that you obtain with your performance appraisal. And so it is very important that you have a plan to meet these goals, and these goals reflect what you want to accomplish in a time period, a certain time period.
And with wisdom, they would align to the organization. Here is where you customize to the target organization. If you are, for instance, and I'll pick on some of the organizations I happen to have working relationships with, if you're working for Disney, we all know that they expect all of their employees to be very technology savvy. Your personal set of goals need to include, if you were with them 5 years ago, should have included your ability to update a website, because you would have some core responsibility, and you're going, I don't know how to do HTML. Well, guess what? It needs to be aligned to, if the company is focused on cost saving, how good are you at? And fill in the blank. If you are sitting here and you are taking a look at an organization that is going green or looking at sustainability, what are your personal interests in those types of things? You need to have, as Diana has said, your personal goals with 1 or 2 goals that are customized in to the company goals. This is why when you target your career search, your goals would adjust for this position or adjust for that position depending on your job search.
Absolutely. And you might say, well, I'm not employed right now. I'm not with an organization right now. Your goals right now may include completing that degree. And so that's of value to you. That's something that you're working on at the present time. So having those goals, whether you're in an organization currently or you're seeking your degree, you need to identify that, because employers look at individuals that complete goals are of value. They accomplish what they set out to do, and it is of value. They look at that strongly.
Here, let's show you what Jason has on his here. You can appreciate where he is. You know, he wants a BS in nursing from St. Francis School of Nursing by August 2012, and he's in the Peoria area in case you're trying to recognize that. Trauma nurse or life flight trauma nurse upon graduation, and then a master's degree in nursing specializing in trauma or surgery. That's where he is in specialty. As he were to target a certain organization, he may need to pick up a specialty such as pharmacology. You with me on this? Or he may have to pick up something that may have to be in burn units. For instance, he is a reservist, so I know for a fact that he has taken 2 extra courses during his reserve duty work with the trauma burn units. And so those are the kinds of things that have aligned for him to get positions. Strategically, folks, you plug in your brain and start looking at where you make better connects with the organizations.
Right. And keep in mind, Jason is an individual that's gone through a career transition. So these are all new goals that he's aiming for.
Plus, he's a nice guy, which isn't nice isn't measurable, but the career goals are. Oh, dear beloved resume, we'll come back and have some fun with that. Work samples by key areas, that's part of planning. And each and every one of you have on your templates that go with this book a career planning tool. As you gather all your work samples, you should be mapping out what skills and competencies does this work sample show. Or flip it around. I have looked at the ideal job descriptions for the jobs I want. What skills and competencies are they looking for so that I can go out and get work samples to show that I have the ability to do this? Works both ways.
And also keep in mind, these work samples may come from some of your classroom work where you've worked in teams, where you've presented. I've heard so many say, I have a project I'm working on, I have a presentation I have to write, I have a research paper that is due. Those are your transferable skills. Those would be excellent work samples if you do not currently have work samples from the workforce at this time.
Oh, and oh, by the way, those crazy instructors, of which I was one in my former life, do not put the 170-page project in here. You put the abstract in here, and full presentation available upon request. Not the whole thing. Okay, you with me? No employer's going to read it unless they have something they're specifically looking for Y'all with me on this? We don't do that. Think like an employer. Short, sweet, to the point, the measurable information.
Many of you in here have community service. Again, draw from your community service, identifying your work samples, identifying your skills. Community service, volunteer work, work that you are not being paid for is still valuable work from which you can draw experience. It also shows an employer that you are valued, that you value your community. So if you value the community, you're going to value the organization, the workforce. So those kind of activities, whether it's with your church, whether it's with the Boys and Girls Club, whatever organization you're working with, are of true value, and you should recognize your accomplishments through that act of volunteerism.
Oh, especially this time of year. Let me help you. This is so easy. In fact, we've got some special projects going on in my world right now where we are assisting transitioning folks on how do I go out and contract with nonprofits and community folks to get certain skills. In other words, I am a fill in the blank. I've got currently someone who is senior management with call centers. And this person has volunteered to head up the call bank for a major fundraiser, because having a letter documenting that he has handled the call center for the big radio station call bank is huge. Plus, strategically, think of all the folks he's going to be meeting in heading up that particular event. And so those of you who are sitting here saying, I am a, and fill in the blank, when you go out and target that you're going to, or you want to gain experience by going to a department head and saying, I'd like to volunteer 50 to 100 hours, and I am seeking to advance my leadership skills, my accounting skills, my this and this, and what I'm looking for in return is a letter documenting my X, that becomes a very substantial work sample. Y'all with me on this? Good.
At this point in time, you should see how valuable the documentation process is. That all your work you do is valuable. That if you're a supervisor, if you're even a supervisor of volunteering, how important it is to document the work of others. So all the time you're accomplishing something, think, how can I document this skill? How can I document this event? Ask for a letter. Do not be shy. You donated your time. Ask for a few moments of their time to document that you were involved in this activity.
And that's in your book. We actually tell you how to go about soliciting a letter of documentation. You're not writing the letter you want from them, but you're sort of coaching them a little, saying, oh, just a reminder, I'm so-and-so, I did X number of hours, I'm looking for your help to document my X, Y, and Z skills in this frame. Help them a little, you know. And don't hesitate to proof their writing. Y'all, you got it?
Along with that, it does not hurt to include a little bit of information about the organization itself. So after they read the letter, they know what type of work is being done and why that's of value with that.
Sound good? You with me? Good. Oh, let's show them Jason's, because, you know, most people with military service tend to have big hearts. Here's a great example. I mean, you got to realize he's an EMT. Here's his documentation. He's got articles from where he's been out there, plus his Red Cross volunteer work and all the things that he was able to get donated in. Folks, you'd be surprised how much you're doing. You're just usually too humble to stop and pause and make sure a photo was taken that's well captioned, or to collect it as you go along the way.
And we have a couple individuals that can really relate to this. And even if you're not in the photograph, you could include the photograph and then write a descriptive of what part you played in this event. So while he has several different areas here he volunteers for, the documentation here is obvious. And it's not too difficult to secure that.
Professional memberships. If for no other reason than after you've gotten done negotiating salary, please know memberships and conferences and professional development tends to come under another line item within an organization, and if you can prove you've been active, then you negotiate for that. So now that you've finished your performance appraisal, your job negotiation, your promotion piece, you're able to say, I would like to have my membership for X also paid for, and let me show you I've been active with this group for X number of years.
The other thing with professional memberships, when you have that in your portfolio and you're showing you belong to a certain, let's say, National Career Development Association, that shows that you have an interest in that area. That's proof that you do not think of the position you have as just a job, but a career. You've invested in that area. So those professional memberships help document that. Does Jason have an example?
Yes, there's a few things, and you know, always the membership cards are here, and when you can show a certificate or show a membership card. Now, I want to do a slight pause and get you to think about a couple things. In the world of portfolios, we have both collateral, hard copy, like we have here, and we'll talk about this so you can go through and look at these. And you're also going to get a chance to live in the world of electronic portfolios. The caution with electronic portfolios or e-resumes with links are the more electronic pieces you let out about yourself, the more opportunity there might be for identity theft, especially when we're dealing with things like membership, because some organizations give enough key information on you. Most organizations have stepped away from Social Security numbers, but a few still aren't there. We don't want to let those kinds of things out. Bottom line is you send a link so that they don't have the actual PDF or document. You work with a source that is on a secure database or network. In the case of the software that you have with this course, everything you are using is on a private network. Everything you send to someone is coming off of a private server that is as secure as would be your banking information. So please understand that it's not like just sending an open email. Correct. So I want to make sure you're aware of that as we go forward.
And that goes for any document or work sample that has confidential information on this. This is a very secure network that individuals will not be able to access openly unless they have the password for that.
But understand, your work is as important as your signature, because all of you have talent, and being able to copy your work is just like cheating in school. And we don't want any of that to be going on. Okay? Degrees, certifications, awards, those categories most people don't think about, but that structure comes through. And as I work with employers across the country, whether they are hiring fresh graduates or senior people transitioning, they will take a volunteer who's received an award over a straight A student who has not every time. And you need to be aware of that. So if you've received an award, even if it's an aged, older award, if you received the J.C. Penney Citizenship Award and it's 10, 15 or more years old, I won't date myself. Notice how quiet I got. I didn't say that. It still has value because it speaks to character. And your character is your word. And I think you have to realize that employers are looking at soft skills. Soft skills are a measure of your person, how you interact with people, how you handle conflict, how you represent their organizations. So they are looking with precision at places here that they can pull soft skills from. And awards are one of the places they quantify that.
And basically what she's talking about, what we look at is behaviors. Past behaviors are an indicator for future behaviors. And so employers look at, they won an award, high quality, they may do this again. And so this is proof. They're looking at past behaviors as an indicator for future performance, no matter what the age is.
All right, they love overachievers. So feel free to overachieve and take all the measurement of that you can. You with me on this? They love you.
Because I've had so many of you say, or I hear so many times, oh, I feel like I'm only talking about yourself or myself. I keep talking about myself. This is what this is all about. And you need to be talking about yourself. You need to be showing what you've accomplished. Now is not the time to hold back.
Well, actually, you're not talking about yourself. This talks for you.
Right.
This is the representation for you, so that this should be able to speak clearly for you and about you. And then as you go through and read in the book, or you go through and get to spend more time and interact here with your instructor, you're going to get to know the many different ways to go about using a portfolio. But this becomes the quantification for your competencies and your abilities. We've had people who have said, just going through the process allowed me to do better when I had contact with a supervisor, when I got into these situations, because I had it organized in my head. And I didn't feel quite as insecure or as defensive when someone said, tell me about, because I knew the answer.
And remember, at the very beginning, we indicated that the portfolio is a career management tool. So the process itself helps you identify where you are, what you've accomplished, what you need to accomplish. It's always that pat on the back once you put it together. Look what I've done. Look what I've accomplished. So the process itself is of great value.
Mm-hmm. And again, it's not a scrapbook. It's not your bronze baby shoes and everything else you've collected. It has a schema and an organization. References, as we take a look here. The one thing I want to point out besides the contact information is he tells you the place and time as to what this is referencing. Work reference, second shift foreman. When you can dial somebody in to the time and the place of the reference, you are able to do something that's significant, especially as we go forward and we begin to talk about top grading. Because in this day and age, as you may or may not know, a lot of references from organizations have only been that they can acknowledge you worked here from this date to this date and your status was acceptable. Now with the burden of top grading, they expect you to have opened the door so that someone can actually address in detail with an open conversation. And so that when you put a name forward, they can discuss it. Because what they want to be able to do with the top grading model is not only look at your competencies, but they want to look at the chronological progression of your career. Did you make logical, strategic moves to move your career forward? If you didn't, did you learn from those choices? I didn't say mistakes, note. I said choices. Because in the wisdom of where industry is, top grading is done because they're looking for A players. Who's promotable? Who's going to advance? who's going to be with us so that I don't have to keep reinvesting in training. And when they look at you the way a dog looks at a cat and sees a piece of meat. They look at you and they see dollar signs. Are you going to make me money or cost me money? And how quickly will you bring me back return on investment? And that's the reality of employers.
And so those who rise to the top, those who master, again, identifying what you have to offer so that employer can look at your portfolio and come to the conclusion you are the individual to be selected. That's on you to make sure that employer has that information to make that decision, because they are looking at the top in making decisions.
And as we work with so many folks at all places in their careers, especially people who might have lost a position, they get frustrated because they don't understand why they lost a position. Well, someone analyzed the return on investment of the individuals being in that role. Could they have replaced them with a younger, less expensive employee who would have made them more money, et cetera, et cetera? So please understand, ladies and gentlemen, it's a numbers game. And you need to understand the calculation. And your portfolio becomes a tool for documenting and quantifying skills, and for you to be able to go in and say to an employer, I can show you how I'm going to grow leadership. I can show you how I'm going to save you money, make you money, and improve customer or client relations.
Yes. And you had a question?
Yes. Is the order that was listed up there for the portfolio, is that how the correct order in which you...
Yes, ma'am, and that's in your book.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
What we have here is inside your book, Creating Your Career Portfolio at a Glance Guide for Professionals, you have access to a template. And the template helps you go through and actually write your work philosophy, write your goals, template out your resume, and all those features. Page 109 in your book actually has... and I think I've set my smartphone over there. Here, you can actually open up your book, and inside your book, how many of you have a smartphone? How many of you have a dumb phone? About as many. Okay. Those of you with a smartphone, if you go in and go to almost any barcode reader app, like I have a barcode scanner app. Are you on page 109?
109.
Just 109, you put the barcode scanner app in, presuming you can hit the broadside of a barn, which is always interesting. Don't ask me to demo anything. Here we go. Then the website comes up on your handy dandy phone. You can email that to your email, or click on it here and the browser will open up for you. All you need to do then is log in, and you can download those templates any way you want them, so that comes out to you. QR codes are the rapid way. You're seeing them all around everywhere, but this gives you immediate access to all those templates. So you don't have to worry about, okay, what website do I go to get the templates to the book? And if you don't have a smartphone, don't panic. The web address is right there in the book.
The web address is there.
Because we don't expect everybody. If I didn't have a good team who kept me up with things, I couldn't have a smartphone either.
Now, are you walking away with Karen's phone?
No, that's my phone.
Your phone, okay.
But if you want to give me your phone, we could work a good deal out. She will, of course, speak up for that. But I wanted you to have awareness that all these component parts are there. Everybody with me on that? We try to make it user-friendly. Because if you're like me, I need more time in the day. Unless you guys have a lot of extra time, I don't. Of course, they say we can sleep when we're dead, but whew, I still could use more sleep. Any questions so far?
One thing you want to make sure, I don't really understand how you get the QR code, but if you understand how to do that and you use that for documentation in your portfolio or in your e-resume, you want to make sure that it works, because you don't want to say you're an expert in technology and then it does not work correctly. So while we embrace technology and we want to use technology, always check to make sure that it is working and doing what you want it to do correctly.
But we all know this in the world of our dear beloved technology anyway.
Right.
Okay, let's take a look at our next opportunity here with what we have.
Oops.
No, you're good.
Good.
Yeah, let's talk about hard copy and electronic portfolios, folks. Because now that we've kind of big pictured everything and you've seen templates and you know the content, what would we do differently or the same as we deal with everything here? Look, hard copy portfolios when we're having face-to-face contact with somebody, because we want to get it in their hands and we want them to touch it and go through it. Your job, there's a couple ways we would use that. Number one, we would use it to answer questions. Someone would say to us, tell me about your worst class at the university. No, they'd never say that. They'd say, tell me about your best experience, or tell me about your strengths. And you, of course, would reach over here and say, I'm really good at developing training. And you would flip to that part, and then you'd hand it to the individual across the table and say, let me show you a training course I developed, and give them a chance to look at it. Hopefully, this will have enticed them enough that they will want to look all the way through. Okay? And that's usually one of the ways that goes. A lot of times, though, you would introduce that you have this in your cover letter and take it in, and that would be the introduction that would go through. On a performance appraisal, you would alert your supervisor 6 weeks before the deadline so they can use it in the weighting and scoring.
Do you know why you would alert them ahead of time? So that the supervisor has time to review your portfolio before he or she actually writes your performance appraisal. And that way you don't want to wait till the last minute to get it in their hands, so they have that as a reference.
Otherwise, they're defensive and they're thinking that you're coming in to argue your performance review. Not a good place to be. The electronic portfolio is a screening tool. It is something used to get through the gate. It is typically something that when they say, send us a work sample so we can take a look at where you are, it is something typically requested occasionally before a first interview, but usually between a first and a second interview. And a lot of times, if you can keep it as a host with links, they will go out and navigate and look at it in their own way. Many folks have typically chosen to do it as a website. The risk with a website is what? It can be Googled, it can be botted, it can be checked out by all the things that move and groove through the internet. If you've got it in a secure place and a link is sent to someone, you have avoided it being accessed by the whole universe. And when you want to put a variety of things up there that are just about you, that's what you want to anticipate and think about. The other thing as you go through this is realize when it's electronic, it's not a page turner. It can be navigated to answer questions. Oh, I want to focus on their writing samples. Oh, I want to answer the question, are they able to do cost control? Oh, I want to, and in their own mind, they can navigate it in a lot of ways. You typically can put more robust work samples that are longer, although I caution you not to get carried away. Collateral, 3 to 5 work samples per skill area. You can go a little higher, 5 to 7 is comfortable. But again, this should not be everything you have because you're targeting. You target always with the portfolio. Never should there be a generic portfolio, ever. And then thoughtfulness required to secure your work samples. Folks, we always get asked, well, I don't know, can I just use any work samples from my prior employer? Here's the answer, maybe. How's that for measurable? Maybe. You may not use those samples if you've signed a non-disclosed, non-compete. I got the answer. No. However, if you're not sure, I recommend you use a template of the work. And of course, if you've got people's private information, the answer is no. My favorite mistake I ever saw was the young woman who was in the payroll department trying to demonstrate her ability. Now use your imagination. What do you think she put in? Social Security numbers, names, followed by pay amounts.
One of the most touchiest subjects you could offer up.
Not good.
Not good.
We got that taken care of. Everybody clear? Now you have the ability with the software that you have to put samples linked to your resume. Usually 1, 2, or 3 samples are the ideal model to link in, but we'll talk more about that. Okay. Oh, this is my favorite, absolute favorite thing to talk about. You have a template for this. This is the career planning tool. Remember I've alluded to earlier, you're going to be collecting these work samples. Collect, 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 collect. And you can work this tool one of 2 ways. First, you pour in and map out, I've got this work sample, this work sample, this work sample. Or you can start with the target position. In this case, this person is targeting being a general manager of a hotel. So this person, as you look across, has 3 key areas: customer service, revenue, telecommunications. This person's rare talent area is marketing, because this person came out of sales and marketing, and then this person has a category of community service. Now this individual, and I've only got part of a chart on here because we don't have 7-mile-long PowerPoints. So this person has as a skill developing SOPs, standard operating procedures, under technical, and then has hotel procedures for 2010 as the specific sample. You with me on this? Now we come down here, and under customer service, constructive conflict management, it's a soft skill, and this person has letters from clients and supervisors. So that's the examples and this person's map in their planning. You should be able to do this yourself, thinking about first from the target position, but you should also be able to go back and reverse engineer from every existing position. So if you've been wait staff, if you've been retail, if you've been a tutor, if you've been an office manager, if you've been a dispatcher at a trucking company, if you've been a welder, fill in the job title, fill in the gap. Then you come down and your key areas are key competency areas. Then these are the key skills, but you should be thinking technical skills, soft skills, system skills, and you're going, I don't know exactly. You don't have to, because we've given you kind of a stratified list. We're helping you do this. We don't expect you to have all this magically in your head.
And
that's what we're here for.
The time involved in completing this is going to save you time in the end, because it's going to be like the backbone of your portfolio. It's the backbone of putting together your resume. It's helping you identify these skills, what skills you have, not only the current, past, transferable. Remember, all work is important, and you've gained skills from all of those areas. So this template is really valuable for you to complete.
90% thought, 10% work. If you do the mapping, your chasing will be a lot easier. Let's take a look at the next one. So with work samples, which is where everybody goes, I didn't save anything from my other jobs. Oh no. Cry, cry. Reverse engineer the positions and go back and see what you've got. Use prototypes when originals have confidential info. We've been down that road. Do I need permission? Well, we've had that conversation. Maybe. But probably not. Now let me help you out here. If you're not sure, here's your chance to reach out and kill two birds with one stone and double check if you can open the door to use them as a reference. You know,
I really letter, supporting letter.
Exactly. Now, all soft skills require third-party documentation. All technical skills, as in technical competencies or technology, or those you can prove yourself. But keep in mind, if you want to reach back to an employer and say, I know I developed these pieces for the employee handbook. I'd like to be able to include this in my portfolio. Would you mind if I did that, and could you serve as a reference in my job search? That's a perfect way to open that door. Perfect way to open that door. And let me tell you, you guys all have a much easier time opening that door than do people who might have been dismissed from the organization, who, in the case of top grading, need to go back and trace every step in their career in a reverse way. Soft skills. I can't just say, I am really good on the phone, which you guys would imagine I would be. Okay? I have to have somebody else say, oh, Anna, she's excellent on the phone. She takes good messages. She repeats the phone number back. She identifies who the call needs to go to. She's terrific.
You need the detailed proof of this, though, from a third party.
That's right.
Anna can't do it herself.
No, I can't just say, oh, I'm so good at this. Also not good to have my mother do that for me. You all with that? You can't really use family members as the credibility.
They may not say that good of things about it.
Actually, my mother would say good things about me. She really likes me. I'm her favorite. Oh, wow, don't you love this? Did you ever want to know what the concrete list was of soft skills? Boom, here it is. How good are you all at coordination, instructing, persuading? Did you know those are soft skills? My kids, by the way, are very good at this. They think they can negotiate anything. I would like those skills not to be so good. Service orientation, that is a cluster of concrete measurable skills. Anticipating the needs of others, that's a skill. Social perceptiveness, being aware of others' reactions and understanding why they react as they do. These are all framed by the Department of Labor and the Department of Education. Diana and I are really good, but we did not make these up this week just for you. These really are framed. Same thing goes with resource management, and they come down to time management, financial management, collateral resource management, and they really go through at how good are you at motivating people. And though they all break out separately, because the mistake so often made with soft skills is somebody groups them together and say, oh, he's so nice. Not measurable. Nice is not measurable. Must be quantified. And then, of course, systems like judgment, decision making, analytical abilities. And these are very different than saying a good mechanic, strong, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. Those are very different abilities. Questions?
For instance, with instructing, it doesn't mean you need to be a teacher or a trainer. In your job day to day, in your groups, in classrooms, you're helping other individuals. That's instructing. That's aiding another individual. So you have these soft skills in your day-to-day processes. You don't necessarily have to tie them to a title. Everyone uses these soft skills. So don't let a title stop you from identifying these list of skills.
Does that make sense? Because so often we want to step away and say, I'm not a teacher and I'm not a trainer. We want to divorce ourselves from those titles. But those are expected, as all of you are going to be assessed in a leadership role. Are you familiar with the fact that many organizations are following a sports model where they are actually looking at you for the next move in your career so that you should be on the bench for the next position? So while you may be a manager or a supervisor here, you should be looking for where you want to go next in the company. So they are looking for you to be on the bench for this position, meaning you're cross-training for that position. So you need to anticipate that.
You always need to look at what is your shelf life. What are you worth presently and what are you worth in the future?
I really don't like to look at my shelf life, although I'm well preserved. I need to work on that. We won't go into that one. Types of the how on work samples. Where do I go? How do I pull it together? I don't know where to start. Start with your calendar. If all else is breaking loose, get a hold of your Outlook file, get a hold of your day timer, which I know dates me in and of itself, and go through and say, what have I produced that's real, I can touch? Find the electronic file and find the hard copy file and get them in one place. God save us from the USB drives that blow up or the hard drives that blow up. And keep in mind, I'm the compulsive person who backed up my PhD 7 different ways and sent the file in a FedEx envelope to the father-in-law to be sure it wouldn't be lost because I was afraid. You know, that's who I am. But you do want to be sure you're going through and looking for summaries and attendance and certificates. Make an appointment with yourself once a month for a half hour. Cup of coffee, all the phones off, television off, and just give yourself 30 minutes. And if you set a pattern up, it will really help your mental health.
Don't wait till the last minute to try and put this together. Or if you need it at the last minute, although we have some tips on how to do this. If you maintain it as you go, it's going to be much easier for you to keep, and also much easier for you to identify what do I need next for my portfolio.
If you keep your work samples collected, you'll be able to respond to almost any situation. If you have to go hunt down work samples, life is very tough. Okay? Program guides. When you've been out and participated, etc. You'd be surprised how those slip away from your life.
If you're participating in an award ceremony and you receive a letter that this ceremony is going to happen at this date and time, keep that letter, because that is also documentation here of what's going on.
Cell phones today actually take remarkably good quality photos. You need to be in the habit of actually keeping those photos. Email them to yourself and to somebody else so that you have those.
Remember to request letters. Make sure too when you request documentation, if at all possible, it has a date on there so that the letter aligns with the sample that you have, the description of the activity. You may have to remind them what was happening at the time. And then also samples of learning moments, training materials, curriculum, especially if you're currently in school, the things that are going on in the classroom, the activities you're involved in. Save those documents. Have the professor write a note about your project. You may have a team member write about how you participated. And so these are different types of work samples, but you constantly need to be thinking about this particular activity, this particular experience. How is this going to be of value to me, and how am I going to document it? So that later on you don't have to go back and re-establish all of this. Constantly be in the mindset of how is this going to benefit me down the line.
Questions thus far on work samples? Yes?
I work in an arena where we don't have a lot of business type, it's more hands-on. So how would I accumulate work samples? We literally are hands-on. We march our cadets to school. We teach them how to make a military style bunk. We teach them how to put a wall locker together. These aren't things that we physically are doing behind a computer where we can show in a notebook or in a portfolio, this is what I do every day. You would,
well, you have your MOS standards. And in the case of the software that you have access to in the class, it is crosswalked to all the MOSs. So you will be able to go in and pull those down. So lucky for you, many of those should already be built in. If not, email us, we'll support you through that. Photos of those items in action that are accurately captioned are one component. However, you're probably underestimating the planning that you actually have gone through to deliver that field training. The other component that I recommend you give thought to is what your evaluation standards are when you evaluate those cadets. Because I trust you don't just have a fly by the seat of your pants evaluation method. You probably have very measurable criterion that even though you carry it up here in your head, it is standardized and it does exist in a formal way. If you deliver that in a verbal way, you should write that up as if you were instructing somebody else to deploy it. And that would be your work sample. Talk a third party through it, and then your commanding officer should be able to sign off on your ability to deploy that. So and are you all tracking with what I've said to her? Because some of you may be in similar positions. If you are in a field position of activity where you have a lot of physical activity involved, but you are working from an SOP, standard operating procedure, and there are standardized evaluation methodology, write up what you do in a very clean procedural way, or make reference to the clean procedural way that it exists, and then utilize your supervisor as that sign-off to ability, and then that should plug in very cleanly to what your goals are for your career growth. Now that I'm doing this in the field, I see myself taking the next steps. You know, this should work like a puzzle. Did I answer your question?
I also have an individual who is running different types of machinery. And so he is doing, as Anna expressed, writing up about it, but at the same time, he's taking his cell phone, he's taking a picture of this step, and then integrating that photo in his writing so you could see the basic steps. So it doesn't matter what type of work you're doing, whether it's accounting, whether it's HR, you could document step by step what the procedures are, have someone else sign off on it.
I think you'll find as we've got work samples in, and we'll show you some of this with Jason as we go through this. He's a welder, so we have some welding documented work samples, and as we go through and we look at his skill list, you'll be able to see that. On the military side versus the civilian side, we have the equivalent crosswalks, so that will kind of help in that. We've always embraced the military crosswalks with that. I think this will be a good place to take a 10-minute break, bring everybody back with some fresh air and a clear head. Okay, folks, ready, set?
Let's go.
Yes, let's. Okay, regarding work samples, the infamous collect now, sort later. Well, we have a bit of a new twist that's going to help you mentally as you go through this. When you're collecting, it's more collect now, classify by using an indexing method. So one of the things you have is a template so that you can actually download onto your system an index system that will give you all of this template for both direct and indirect so that you can begin to drop your work samples in to these directories, because everybody's going, well, I don't know how I might organize them. Well, we thought we'd just help you out with a few things in case you didn't want to have to start the brainstorming process yourself. So that is in your downloadable templates, just in case you'd like to have them. So when you're going through, before you start using the software, the further you go in getting your work samples together, the easier life gets for you. But the good news is you can add work samples all the time, anytime. So as you go through that. Two things to think about, and we talk about this in the book. Number one, get yourself a naming convention. And keep in mind, a lot of folks are going to be looking at your work samples, even though they're on the secure site. So somewhere in there, I would assume your initials or your name will show up. Second of all, if it's going to be electronic, it needs to be small. If it's going to be printed, as in you want it to be camera ready and beautiful, it needs to be at a high resolution. So 72 DPI for an electronic file, 200 to 300 DPI for camera ready copy. I'm just giving you the publishing gig so you could make it easier. I know I've got one class at another university, and we have actually set up for them the opportunity to print with a commercial printer where they have an electronic mailbox, and the whole class is actually dropping in at the 2 weeks before the end of the semester all their files that they want to print so that they will have an electronic portfolio come out at the end that it just arrives at their home address, and they just drop in what they have decided would be what they want in the end, because it's just a lot of hassle to deal with it on their own printer.
So you need to understand how the equipment works if you have your own equipment, how you could set it up so that you can scan at 72, 200, 300, or if you're taking this in and you want to have it professionally done, make sure you tell them what you want. Don't assume that they already know. And so when you come in and you're an informed consumer, and you say, I want it at 200 or 300, or I want it at 72, then they have an idea you know what you're talking about, so that your finished product will be what you really want for your portfolio.
Quick comment. I recommend, if you haven't had a chance to play with a scanner, that you roll up your sleeves and go play with a scanner. You need to get proficient in scanning at this day and age so that you can use one. Okay, moving along in the effort of time, I think you're going to find also that as you go in, you're going to be able to, this is a classification by types, because you're going to come back and begin to tag these by competencies. So right now, this is just a shopping list that says, oh, these are my PowerPoints, these are my websites, these are my, and then you're going to turn around and say, oh, competency of my cost control, competency of my, and so you're going to get better and better, and as you're already understanding listening to us in this short amount of time, the more you work this, the more you're going to be able to have a conversation with someone and say, well, I'm able to do, let me show you my, and it already fills in the gaps.
And another clue is when you're naming these, keep in mind you may have more than one document in this, so don't name it Resume 1, Resume 2, Work Sample 1, Work Sample 2. Make sure that the name that you select matches the work sample. And it's one that you can identify when you look at the title, what it actually is, that you don't have to open it up to see what is there.
Oh.
This is your key to organization here, and your key to being able to understand the process. Make it simple for yourself by using a directory.
Right, it should be your initials, AMGW Red Cross fundraiser, March of 2010. You're going, oh my God, that's long, but boy, if you look at the title, you know what it is and you don't have to open it. Okay.
If you're one of the individuals that has your closet sorted by color, have all the red and the green and the white, that's how you want to think of your work samples or your tools, all by what type of tool.
My shoes are in boxes by color and heel height.
So that's why you want to think of your work samples by key skills also. This sample represents this skill. Make it easy on yourself. Have the organization there for you.
How did she know I did that in my closet? I have them all sorted by color. I do. Okay, are we ready to talk software? Absolutely, I know we are. Okay, the software has 3 components. All of them each operate independently but play nicely together. We have an OAT, outcome assessment tool piece for occupations, GAP, which is where we take a look at, here I am, this is where I want to go, this is the stuff in between I need to get done, and then the e-resume tool. And as Diana has shared with you, you need to understand, if you don't take anything else away from here today, you need to be planning to do a custom resume for each target application. Gone are the days where you mass produce one resume and send it to 1,000 people because they're ineffective. Because right now with artificial intelligence, they are scanning and targeting for custom skills. Question?
A couple of years ago, I was told that the conventional thinking was you had just a generic resume and you tailor-made your cover letter for the organization you were applying to.
That's no longer the case. Thanks to what can happen on all the different search engines that are out there, that has really been a big trend change in the last 5 years, because everything from the job search boards like Career Builder to Career Rookie, which is for college students, to what we see on Monster, to even what we are seeing in how the large companies go about doing posting on their own websites. You really can credit the search engines like Google and Yahoo for that, because we now know that over 60% of the resumes are never viewed by a human. So they go in and they keyword screen. So the generics, the keyword screening never looks at the cover letter. The cover letters aren't opened or even connected. The cover letters are looked at the second or third stage after the resumes have made the first step of screening.
So it's still relevant to do a cover letter?
Absolutely.
Targeted towards that application?
Absolutely, always, but it is not considered until the resume has made it through the screening process. So your resume needs to be customized both by your career summary or your career objective, as well as taking a look at what your competency is. And the way this software is set up for you, think of this as a bucket. And you're pouring in all your educational experience, you're pouring in all your work experience, you are pouring in all of your work samples, and that is all in here. You are able to take out, first of all, a gap analysis, and that gap analysis is going to tell you, okay, here's my status. I am a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. I have this much work experience, this much educational experience, this much specialty training sitting right here. And so my snapshot is here, and when I get done, I want to be, as in the case of Jason, a trauma nurse RN. Now I come with welding, I come with being an Army reservist. So he has this profile, and he wants to get to here. So he may be actually looking at so much extra medical experience, and he may have this much he's missing in terms of education, and he has this much in his unique way of getting to be an RN. There are a multitude of paths for getting to be a trauma nurse. Just like for each of you who have career goals, there's a lot of different ways to getting to that career goal. Dietitians need a year of experience post-degree. So when you go down this path, that's why each resume must be unique. Okay, let's take a look here. Go ahead.
I was just going to point to the gap that you were indicating, we're talking about, and then your resume. So these are the three different components that we'll be looking at with the software. And the other thing with the resume, when you're talking about skills, in the book it talks a little bit about, talks a lot about how to identify those skills, how to make that resume so that when it's out here online, that top grading, that skill harvesting, we haven't talked on skill harvesting, looking at those keywords, identifying those skills, how very important that is. So if you have all that information in a cover letter, it may never have the opportunity to be looked at with that. So that's why the resume is important, to have all that information within the resume.
And some organizations are looking chronologically, some are going to be looking at achievements, and we'll talk about that. Let's start with the OAT, or the Occupational Assessment Tool. The top part gives essential data. You're going to fill in name, rank, serial number, hit save, and it'll be in there. Now you're going to come through, and we have various sections, and let me just explain quickly why we have them. You're going to give your educational background. In your case, you'll give your highest level you're in pursuit of here, which for many of you is the baccalaureate degree. Then I want you to check every area you've had as a specialty of study, including if you've had a specialty you focused on in high school. Some of you may have had an agricultural focus while you were in high school, or you may have had a hospitality focus, and fill in the blank. But as you've come through your degree area here, the same is important.
Fill out as much information as possible when you go through this OAT process, because that's going to then transfer on later on in the next steps. So again, don't be shy at identifying your areas.
You'll see three categories: experience, training, and general. Keep in mind, employers, they want to know your education, they want to know your experience, and then the category of training is a separate area. Experience, we are looking for how long have you been in the workforce full time. You say, I've worked 3 summers. Well, those add up into so much. Don't ignore any of those. And it doesn't have to be in the same discipline. It's accumulative. Mark your highest position you've held, because that's what we're seeking out for understanding who you are. Then as you come into the next category here, under training, we're trying to get a feel for the types of training you've experienced, because the types of training you've experienced helps us quantify, in particular, your interaction with the industry environment, and that becomes very important. And then we go on to get the estimated number of training hours, not what you were trained on, but how you've experienced industry as a whole from the training perspective. The Department of Labor is frequently asked this data, and your employers wind up needing to report this. That's why you're being asked this now. Then we come down here, and the general category, I get a lot of folks who say, why are you asking me this? Everything that is asked under the general category is a typical classification for job tax credits. In many locations, as you go out to seek a job, an employer gets an advantage in hiring you if you fall into these categories. If you're a veteran, if you are a primary caregiver for the elderly, if you are a primary caregiver for children. You know, here in the state of Illinois, there are technology grants if your field of study, that's why we were seeking it out, is technology. And so this data we are working to harvest so we can identify by mapping to your zip codes where we might be able to say to you, hey, flag this in your cover letter, because, you know, the veterans right now, job tax credits are very significant for year 1 and year 2. On the occupational assessment tool, we also want your age range. We will also then come through, and this is how the tool is overall organized throughout this software. We are working from database in here, which has over 7,000 occupations, crosswalk to all your educational data. So you're going to put in here your focused field of study, all the way through and what level you have, and then it will bring you into the database and look up the closest match and be able to link it. So if you're sitting here and you're saying, I'm studying business, I'm here to be a dietitian, I'm here to be an RN, whatever it is, you'll be able to look it up, read for the closest match, and it will drop in with the code. And that would be this case for everything from your high school, associates, all the way through. Then you come in and do the same thing with occupation. When you get, and this is every job from mowing lawns to waiting tables to nuclear scientists. Any of you who've been a nuclear scientist lately, that's in the lookup. So feel free to put that one in. And you would simply, under occupation, you can do the fuzzy search. Please work on your spelling. Get relatively close. Click lookup. It will bring you in on the list. But you must fill out down here on the bottom, what do you want to be when you grow up? What's your target occupation? What's your target career? And a lot of people are saying, if I'm doing a resume, why do I have to tell you the target? This is all my background. And my answer to you is, it's the difference between generic and specific. We know from employers that they want to know that you are targeting to work for them. The generic pieces are not meeting their needs. Question?
Sorry to interrupt.
No, go
I
ahead.
just have a question about like the occupational information. Can it also be a double standard? Because you hear a lot of people that are resume experts tell and give advice on only focus on your resume what you're physically trying to go out and get a job in reference to. So if you're trying to get a job in reference to computers and you worked at, let's say, Little Caesars, it's not necessarily lying, but you're not going to emphasize all that into your resume. But in this aspect of it, if you're putting everything that you said from waitressing to washing cars, I mean, is that going to cause an interest of conflict when they actually look at your resume and do a comparison?
You are bringing up a good point. You're 2 steps ahead of yourself, because when we actually go into the architecture of the resume, you get to choose what you want to include. And I would tend to agree with you.
Not considered lying though, right?
If you've really...
Like if I go into apply for a job as a police officer, and obviously I'm going to put my military background, the academy background, but I may leave out that I worked at a call center, or maybe some of the things that don't necessarily apply to the skill harvesting aspect of the
Yes.
resume, because that's key, like you stated with her question. You want to zone in on, you know what the job description is, you pretty much know what they're going to focus in on keywords or aspects or experience, but it's not that the life experience that you had working at, the call center or McDonald's isn't going to tie in, because it all ties into who you are carrying.
This is what I heard you say. I heard you ask the question, should I include everything in my work experience when applying for a specific job when some of my work experience is below or not directly related? That's what I heard you ask. And in response to your question, I'm going to answer it on 2 levels. Level 1, in a generic way to the architecture of any resume, you always want to target the employer, identifying how you meet their needs. So unless you can relate something in those other positions in a significant transferable skill way, I would step down from including those. In the case specifically to the CES software, Career Express Suite, you are going to be able to look in your bucket and click on anything you want to include at the level you want to include it. And we're going to show you that here shortly, but you bring up an excellent point, and that is appropriate to anticipate that question.
Keep in mind, during this process, you're building a database that you're going to select this information from when you design your resume. And we'll...
Is the employer going to have
No,
access to see
no,
this? When you talked
no.
about giving them links, but maybe that was my
No, when you send a resume, and we're going to show you this, you're going to send them a resume, and the hyperlink to your selected work sample is in there.
Wonderful.
This is your private database. This is your private career management tool. And that's what makes this so rich and robust for you, because with you being savvy, you who are, and let me back up and give you one more piece of information, and I do see your question. This is on a mainframe. So when you're sitting here worried about your hard drive going south, this has a recovery system and lives in a very safe place, and you have web access from anywhere. You can get on any computer with web access and your password and add anything and get anything out of it and send it any place and go, whew, no worries, okay? So that just makes life simple. On the flip side, you are only sending out only what you want someone to see, which is the other merit to the custom resume architecture and the wisdom of the custom resume. And in our world, as I work with recruiters at the national level who hire both college graduates and senior management at the CFO, EIO levels way up here at the food chain, they are looking at individuals who have done a custom match. Now they tend to know where everybody is, but they first take a look at that resume. The resume gets you the interview, the portfolio gets you the job. And if you've put all your work samples in here, you will then reach here to harvest the work samples to customize your delivery for the portfolio.
And you are always in control of what they view and what they don't view and what you want to customize on there.
Absolutely. I'm a control freak, so I'm totally with you all. Yes,
How
ma'am.
many years of work experience should you go back?
Quite candidly, there is no limit, but your focus needs to be, right now on top grading, they're going back in the arena a minimum of 10 years. Is the core of where they concentrate, but they really are looking at full cycle. You know, I'm a young woman under the age of 50, barely, but they would look at the full scope of my career, and they will look at the tenure based on degree in that and all of those components. Yes, ma'am.
How do you handle gaps in employment? Like for me, I took 6 years off where I didn't work as a stay-at-home mother.
They will always, you deal with that with honesty, and you deal with that is what is covered in the interview process, and they're going to look at that in the top grading as something that they will truly weigh by you saying, my commitment to family, that was time I spent raising my family, and that's not a criticism, that's a description of fact.
And during that time, I also went back to school.
Or going back to school, you need to relate that.
And if, exactly, I was raising my family and securing a degree. That means you had a dual agenda, raising family and professional development. Totally appropriate reason to take that time.
Okay.
Never apologize.
The next screen, selecting a target occupation, and then it also talks about using the college catalog. One thing I want you to be aware of, Eastern's complete graduate and undergraduate catalog. Anna was able to get, must have worked very fast this week, was able to get all of the degrees, all of the courses, all the curriculums in this tool so that you will be able to identify that.
Which means, and this is significant, the software crosswalks every career, every occupation, every military code, and now we have all the academic courses. This means that the Department of Education plays nicely with the Department of Defense, which also plays nicely with the Department of Labor, which is like miraculous. These guys all play nicely together. But what it gives us is the fact that when you take this course, this knowledge base is in general related to this career field in this domain. So in theory, should the universe play nicely, and they actually are tending to, so we should be happy on multiple reasons, to say that when you take Accounting 101 at Parkland, it is playing nicely with Accounting 101 at the University of Illinois, at Illinois State, at Bradley, at Harvard, at Purdue, at James Madison University, and I can go on and on. You all with me on this? So that we can compare apples to apples. And your course numbers for your entire course catalog are indeed in the software, as we do with every university that we work with. So that should help you a great deal to go, oh wow, this gap analysis relates to me. That's what we do.
Very personalized, the gap list. You're going to be able to come up with the gap report, which Anna can explain. But also I wanted to call your attention to, in the software, you'll be able to update this. So it's not a one-time thing. You could go back, you could update, you could view it. If there's something in there that you've decided is no longer valuable, you'll be able to remove that. So you're in constant control of what information is here. And again, the gap report will will change as the information that you put in there changes.
Or if you say, I want to target this career, but what would happen if I change my mind and I want to try that career? And then you can try it on paper without having to change your major, you know? You don't have to tell anybody. We won't tell, okay? Your gap report, as you look at this, the first block shows you the status. In other words, here's the universe. Now we go over here and we get the target. He wants to be a registered nurse. And it tells us lacking nursing instructors and teachers experience over 1 year and up to including 2 years. He has no experience. It's telling us where his experience is lacking. And here are the courses that he's got gap in, that he's missing, as are gapped from what we have on that catalog. And so we've got the education. You'll see the crosswalk on his military experience. You see the education courses that he's got. You see the welder, fitter, emergency medical, the experience quantified in there. Folks, this is an excellent snapshot when you're trying to say, ooh, who am I? And where do I go from here?
And I want to build on that. I want you to take the time when you get to these screens, when you get to working with this. This is an investment in you because many of you are changing careers. This is going to be personalized to your personal needs. So when you put in the information, put in as much as you can, take advantage of this tool because this summary here is going to help you identify where you want to go, what steps you need to take. So I might be on track with the education, but I don't have work experience in there. How could I get that? It may say volunteer. It's realistic. It matches up with what is expected, and it is your tool to use. So again, the more information, the more accurate information you can put in here, you know, good data in, good data out, this tool is really going to help you plan for the future. If you have all your courses in here, it's also going to help you keep track along with any of the other resources you're using, your advisor, but it helps you take control. That's why, again, it's a career management tool.
I'm a control freak. Can you tell? You can tell. And you can also tell I'm practical because I just need to know how many hours of experience do I have to play the game to get the job? I mean, that's how I work. I don't know how you guys are. Tell me what I got to do to get it. Sorry, I'm a farmer's daughter, so I'm really practical. I may have my PhD and 2 masters, but, you know, I don't mess around with this stuff. Okay. Let's talk e-resume and let's get through the down and dirty. There's some mechanics to resume. The resume process you have access to, this is guided resume development. This is not a template that you plug and chug through. So many folks think, oh, they're going to give me a template and I just have to follow directions and then it's going to be pretty and then we'll all be happy. No. What you're going to get here is, remember you poured it all into the bucket? You're going to get a choice of which kind of resume format you want to follow. Then it's going to come out and you get to choose as I go along which parts to customize. We'll know if you get lazy because the defaults will read like government defaults. Nah, we don't want you doing that. And so you get to choose. You get to customize, and then you're going to get to choose what work samples you want to attach. Couldn't be any easier. And the formats are designed to be able to be sent to an employer or dropped into a job board. I mean, don't know what else we could do, but that seems to be what we're supposed to be doing. It's just the way resumes are supposed to look.
And keep in mind, when you're designing this, I always want to caution, everyone's at different times as far as involvement in the workforce. So many of you may have more work samples, more information to put in here than others. Some of you are going to be new graduates. That's fine. You're learning the process. You're learning how to develop this resume further down the line, you may be changing it. You may have some work experience. You may have more work samples to place in the resume. You may be targeting it for a completely different career area. Learn the process. This is what we're all about. Learning the process of how to design these resumes that will represent you and that will help you identify future moves.
You folks have access to this software for 2 years. Not just 1, but 2 years. Not just during this class, but for 2 years. And because you're in the course with the author, you're going to be able to renew for $10 a year, which is, you know, a big drink and a whatever at Starbucks. So, and a whatever. We never know what Starbucks is going to do next, but. So let's take a look at the next slide and talk through what these screens are going to be as we go on our little driving tour.
I'm going to sit here and do the screens so we can go through them.
Okay, and we'll drive fast. You don't have to remember the format of resume. You just get to choose. Do you want to do chronological? That's like in order by time. Do you want to do functional, as in these are my duties and this is what happens? Or do you want to do a combination? My personal favorite, but don't let me bias you. You get to choose. Now, if you've been in the job market 10 years or more, definitely make sure you're hitting something that has chronological in there because they'll top grade you through. After you decide, you hit complete and go on. Now, 1, 2, 3, these are the orders the way they come through. We're going to tour using Jason's resume because he has so many fun things we can look at. You add a new resume. So you go to the top, name it something. Okay, same thing, so you don't have to always look into it. You say, okay, this is my application for an internship. Okay, or this is my response to an award, or whatever the purpose of the resume is. Give it a title, folks, and jump in. Don't call it number
Don't call
one.
it resume.
And don't call it resume. That's not going to help you any. And you must choose a target position. And you go, huh? But trust me, the target position gives it what it will ideally pull from. And if nothing else, your target position should be your goal position. When I grow up, I want to be. You know, and if I were going to get another career, I definitely want to be a neurologist. If I could career shift right now, that's the field of study I personally want to go into. But I'm a little busy having fun in the one I'm in, so I kind of have to delay that. So maybe in 5 years I'll pursue that one. But not right now. I'm busy. So that would be my choice. And then the keyword search, and you hit click. Then you march over to here, and see all the positions and things are in there. Notice populated. We come down here, the results list on the history items, and he's got samples in. We all seeing this? We're going, oh man, this is cool. This could be you. Think. Now, here comes the headers. If you don't like a header, rename it. If you don't like, if there's something you want to tweak on your address, you go into the field and you adjust it. You want your middle initial in there? Jason A. Adams, Anna Marie Graf Williams, whatever I'm going by today. You put it in there. You come down here, instead of this saying objective, you may want it to say career objective. You edit it, folks. You work your way down. Look at this big, huge, this is how we know if you're sleeping. This is the insert that comes off the default. That simply says target position, registered nurse. It should be edited, and you have the chance to customize your objective, but this gives you a great place to shop for keyword language. But if you want to do it the hard way, go ahead. We don't mind. You can struggle. We don't care. Be our guest. But if you're looking for a place to get the ideal language for what that position should be able to do, I recommend you shop from here. If you're going for a target position, wouldn't it be easier to know the model position, job title, and be able to start from there? You all with me on this? How this could be easier in your life than doing it from scratch? Okay, next. Experiences are going to come up in the same way. Each one will have the header, the job title, the company. You can add, here are achievements. Each of these has multiple work samples. You get to choose which ones to add. And the items. Oh, and we're going to show you so many more things. Gosh, we haven't even scraped the surface on this. And you get to edit or leave them as they came in for defaults. Now, in the back of your book, I'm going to borrow your book, dear. In the back of your book, you have vocabulary, transferable skill lists, action verbs. You can enhance anything that's up here. You're really smart. You get to own this and make it your own. You get to make it easy. And then you also get to go through here in the resource guide and look further and go, oh man, action verbs by skill by industry. Oh, I'm really more out of this industry. Oops. You get to go all the way through and adjust every header, adjust, maybe this isn't responsibilities. Maybe you're in a section here and it's accomplishments. You own it, it's your resume. Fix it. Next. Education, guess what? Same thing. Training, same. Next. Activities, my all-time personal favorite. Most of you by now have gotten tired and blow activities off. You do. You forget to go, okay, what in activities is going to help me? Or you're saying, well, should I move my volunteer internship stuff into the job section, or does it belong on activities? You can put it in either area as long as you've labeled it correctly and as long as you quantify it adequately. If it was formally something in the curriculum and you did at least 75 hours, just be sure it stands out and you itemize responsibilities and have adequate work samples to show with it. Okay? And then we come down here. Is the resume complete? Previous screen to the first, to the next, complete. Voila! See, here's Jason's resume. Isn't this amazing? Look like a reasonable resume? All that came from our drop downs. You're going, oh my gosh, can you imagine? And then some people go, well, I don't like that font. I want Jason Adams to be bigger. I want the margins to be this. Before you wig out, let me tell you a couple things. Number one, the fonts, there are only 3 fonts that are not going to make the software that is scanning all this go wacko. They're boring fonts. We all know that. Those of you who are font junkies, I'm with you. I have a business partner who has thousands of fonts on the system computer, so we're with you. The margins are set the way they are so that they are scannable. White paper, you all know that because we know that all the fancy papers are putting you at risk. You know you're not supposed to have stuff underlined. If they're in a hyperlink, then they're usually being recognized because of the contrast. So when you look at something like this, you see the blue underlines? These are your hyperlinks. If you can click on those for us, Diana, you'll see that these are his hyperlinked work samples. So in his cover letter, he would have alerted them that he has embedded hyperlinks with his work samples attached. Okay? Or he would have put a note in a footer here. You want to give us one more click? This is work sample number 1 that would be immediately something that could appear. Work sample number 2, showing the membership piece, and number 3. So that, and you would choose these work samples very carefully. These would be the work samples with bling, or these, especially if you're going for a part-time job, I usually recommend you choose something like a certification that is going to be worth money to a part-time employer. Any of you who are holding forklift certifications, food safety certifications, or something that has an immediate cash value that they aren't going to have you trained for, they're going to love you, especially if they can see the certificate on the go. I mean, you're fabulous. Immediately fabulous. So of course I'd put that on there because you're worth a couple $100 on the go. So this kind of resume is a drop and go, but you can always pull this into Microsoft Word and edit a little further. You can always make a PDF of this, which is my preferred method of how to send a resume, because then no one can mess with it. You with me on how this works and how this looks? All of this comes out of your tool with CES. Okay? We have a few more things we want to show you. With top grading, now that you've been down and about, I just want to tour 2 quick things. It's the layer of competencies, and now that we've been through the software, you have been in there tagging competencies all along. So when you get into an interview and they're looking at your resume, it should be really easy, because now you understand that they're looking at you for success, failure, relationships, and major decisions. So you took 6 years off to advance your career and raise your family. Oh, so you've been in one position for 14 years and you didn't advance? But how did your skills grow? You need to be prepared to answer those questions. How do I know you're an A player and you're ambitious enough? Will you add to my bottom line in terms of growing the other leaders? Will you grow leadership around you? Will you make my company money? Will you save my company money? Will you absolutely improve guest and customer satisfaction? If you are not going to do those things, you're not an A player. And I'm not hiring you. I have no room for anybody but people I can promote, people I know will run my operation well. And if you are not in a position where I can move you throughout my company, then are you worth keeping in one location, and what is necessary for your career to grow? Now, let's take a look here at the actual logon. You're going to be given a link. That link is going to, and Diana will email it to you. And your actual link, you will fill out the form. Your password will be sent to you, then you will come in and log in. I want to remind you that you need to be working from the freshest, most up-to-date browser. Doesn't matter which one, but whichever of those 4 you're on, the most current. That saves you a lot of trouble. We can take a look at the next. Here's your actual menu. And now that we've kind of been through the whole universe of everything, this should be very logical to you. Your first one up here is occupations. That's where you put in everything about the universe of my job. And then within there, you add work samples, you update the number of hours, et cetera, et cetera. Education, training, military, any of you with military background, groups. And I want to take you through groups in a moment because that's where your community service is going to be, all your organizations, all your additional activities. We're going to take a quick tour through skill analysis so you can actually see when you put in all your occupations, that's where the harvesting of all your skills is. I hope you understand that. So you've held 5 jobs so far. It actually has taken skills from each of those and it appears in a master list. Samples, gap, resume. We can take a look now. Okay, when you add a group, under groups, you'll come in. Oops.
Sorry about that.
She's getting all excited here. Go back one more. Maybe one more.
Maybe one more.
Maybe one more. There we are. When you get into adding a group, the first thing is you click the drop down and you classify what type of activity or item you're adding. Is it an academic group? Is it extracurricular? Is it sports? Is it professional? And you classify it. Then you name the organization, give the information, if it's paid or not. Most of it is not. And who your contact individual is, working all the way through with the notation. Then you click Add. You'll be coming back in and able to add any work samples. The adding work samples is going to be the same here as it is in education, as it is in occupations.
Next.
To upload a sample, and this is easy, for experiences, we're going to upload for Jason his ServSafe certificate from when he was out in the field. It's a transferable skill in his case because he's working on nursing and it's not his core. I alert you that each work sample can only be 4 meg. Okay, you all with me? It's part of the reason why you need to be savvy as to what you're saving and how. You can save an Adobe PDF, a JPEG, a GIF, a PNG, or you can save a doc file. You all with me on those? Those are acceptable file formats. And we're taking you through and you can browse through anything you might have as common sense. But as we've talked earlier, the more organized you are, the easier this process gets to be. So you've named the work sample. It's clean and clear. He knows what it is, where he's going for it. Now we come in and the item is visible. He's got the thumbnail. We click Update and he's linking it under the occupation of when he was at the aid station in Afghanistan, because that's when he had to get the food safety certification. And he's linking the item there. And we'll click and move on. And you can see that the actual food safety certification is there. So that when he is ready on the resume, that piece is available. If we can see next, please. I want to now show you on skill analysis for Jason. So when we go up there to skill, here's the shopping list. Now if you look across the top toolbar, we have abilities, skill, knowledge, work activities, tools, and technologies. This is there for each and every one of you. As soon as you get all your occupations in, all your education in, all your training experience, this is the harvesting of what you can do. And you're going, well, no, I really haven't had to do time management. Well, from the ideal model positions, it is perceived that you should have. If you haven't had an ideal match, then you probably want to double check and reflect, and perhaps that's something you want to seek out experience in to round out those components, especially if they're target positions. So now we go through and we've got for Jason active learning, coordination, coming all the way down, social perceptiveness, service orientation, and we're coming down on the skill side. You want to go to the next slide for us? We come in under work activities. You know, he comes out of the field of welding. You can see his welding experience up here, including conferring with customer representatives. If we take a look at the next one, you can see under tools, because of his medical work, you know, bottom is welding torches, the top we've got esophageal intubation detection devices. Can you imagine if we had to put those two together? That would be so scary. But although I imagine he just brings just a totally unique set of skills. Can you just imagine what he can do for problem solving for us? But understand what he's proficient with equipment-wise and what that is for us. When you look at that resume, think of the advantages we have with someone who is so skilled from the welding technical side, being in a trauma nurse position. I totally would be delighted to have him, especially working in the field, especially delighted to have him, you know, not just from the EMT perspective, but all the other trauma perspectives. I mean, wow, what a terrific situation. We can take a look at the next list.
This is technology.
Yes. So as we come through, you're going to be able to add, because there's a lookup here, and I'll let you explore that on your own. You're going to be able to add in software applications, equipment applications within your field, because one of the things we know very concretely, all employers are looking to see how up to date are you on the technologies. You will find in some of your areas they are actually so specific that they require you to be able to use a smartphone, not a dumb phone, in the cases we've all talked about here. So I just wanted to give you a chance, as we are getting here to the end of our time talking about CES, to kind of go over the components as we've seen them. Let me kind of summarize where we are in closing. We have gone through the parts and pieces of a career portfolio, and we have offered for your consideration that there's a disciplined structure to putting a portfolio together, that you are to be aware of what a hard copy portfolio looks like, as well as using the software to help you do career planning, and also treat that as kind of your entire documentation center, so to speak. Because out of that, you're going to harvest and pull the components you need for your e-resume development and for pulling any of your work samples. Okay? And, you are welcome to contact me through Diana for any questions you have. And I think that what you have in the book is a really good framework on the how-tos for developing portfolio and in supporting you for the software pieces. So let us know if you have any questions, and we're happy to help. Have a good night, folks.
One thing that I think we need to know is the next steps. So you would be emailing.
I will email to you the link so they can start the login process. And you have to just embrace this, that you can't make any mistakes. You know, You're here to jump in and experiment. You're here to get your work samples together and begin the uploading process. We will, if you run into questions, email Diana. She'll get them to us immediately. I have assigned one of our programming team members to be totally devoted to your class to respond to any questions, and he's very good at getting back to us within 24 hours, if not sooner. And I think you're at a very exciting point, provided it weren't quite so late, for doing the development and using this not just to meet a requirement in a course, but to advance your career in an organized way. You are welcome to spend a moment looking at the portfolio if you like, but we also understand how the clock ticks.
So our next face-to-face class, we don't meet next week, but our next face-to-face class, I will have that link, and we will come in and we will physically work on putting together your program here with the e-resume, getting information into the database, and we'll start this process.
So if they came with their work samples on a USB drive, they would be having a really good class.
Right, right.
Hello, I just made an assignment and I'm just passing through. Did I delegate up really well or what?
She said she takes control. So
Control.
So be thinking about what you want to put in the resume, some work samples that you could line up. And it's not going to be done in one class period. This is something that's going to be ongoing, which will never be completely finished. We have 2 years. And I want to personally thank Anna for coming over.
My pleasure.
For making these resources available for our class and for the university, because there's universities all over the United States that are using this program. And so we have the advantage of having her here in person. And I really appreciate that.
I would like to say it was very interesting to see all the steps that you did and to see the end result of it.
Thank you.
Because it looked like it was so much, and I'm sitting here overwhelmed like, Lord, for real? But the ending of it, it was all put together.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I am a get to the bottom line kind of gal.
Eventually.
Do not take me down the path and show me a bunch of stuff without showing me how do I put it all together, and because I need it. So that's why I took you back to the menu at the end.
Yeah.
I gave you big picture until I could boil you down to, okay, here's the screens, here are the pieces, and here's how we put it together. So thank you for acknowledging that.
And it's a lot to digest at one time, but keep in mind your textbook covers the process of putting the portfolio together. The templates will be available. Now, they're not available till they actually register, right?
Correct, but we'll get you those pieces.
And I could
Well, actually, no, the templates are available as soon as you scan the QR code.
Oh, okay. Okay. Or go to the website.
Or go to the website. If you have a smartphone, if you have a dumb phone, work it out,
Questions before we wrap up? Okay. Thank you very much. You want your photo, you want your bio to really give that image of who you are. It's your chance to make an impression on here.
Because we all know the HR department shows up at 5 o'clock when you've been sweating all day and crawled out under a piece of equipment, and then they want to take your picture against a white wall, okay? Don't let that happen.
We transferred back to what else to put in the portfolio after we've gone through the bio. Professional goals. Everyone should have goals. And those goals should be realistic. They should be towards their indicated professional goals. So it's not that you want to lose 20 pounds by Christmas. What are your goals for continuing your education, for career transition, or for remaining in the position that you're in? Remember, it's important for your employer to understand You may want to remain in the position that you're in. You're happy, but you have some goals that you want to make sure that you obtain with your performance appraisal. And so it is very important that you have a plan to meet these goals, and these goals reflect what you want to accomplish in a time period, a certain time period.
And with wisdom, they would align to the organization. Here is where you customize to the target organization. If you are, for instance, and I'll pick on some of the organizations I happen to have working relationships with, if you're working for Disney, we all know that they expect all of their employees to be very technology savvy. Your personal set of goals need to include, if you were with them 5 years ago, should have included your ability to update a website, because you would have some core responsibility and you're going, I don't know how to do HTML. Well, guess what? It needs to be aligned to, if the company is focused on cost saving, how good are you at? And fill in the blank. If you are sitting here and you are taking a look at an organization that is going green or looking at sustainability, what are your personal interests in those types of things? You need to have, as Diana has said, your personal goals with 1 or 2 goals that are customized in to the company goals. This is why when you target your career search, your goals would adjust for this position or adjust for that position depending on your job search.
Absolutely. And you might say, well, I'm not employed right now. I'm not with an organization right now. Your goals right now may include completing that degree. And so that's of value to you. That's something that you're working on at the present time. So having those goals, whether you're in an organization currently or you're seeking your degree, you need to identify that, because employers look at individuals that complete goals are of value. They accomplish what they set out to do, and it is of value. They look at that strongly.
Here, let's show you what Jason has on his here. You can appreciate where he is. You know, he wants a BS in nursing from St. Francis School of Nursing by August 2012, and he's in the Peoria area in case you're trying to recognize that. Trauma nurse or life flight trauma nurse upon graduation, and then a master's degree in nursing specializing in trauma or surgery. That's where he is in specialty. As he were to target a certain organization, he may need to pick up a specialty such as pharmacology, are classified by key competency areas, including the fact that if any of you have career shifted, let's say you came out of the field of programming, computer programming, and now you want to do project management, we would take a look at your computer programming and consider that a rare talent area, but your focus area is really going to be computer programming. So I'll show you this as we go forward with planning, how you're going to use that to present it in an organized way. Any of you dead? Check for a pulse. Because if you're not, each and every one of you should have a works in progress going on. Unless you're dead, you've still got work going on, and so there should be an ongoing list of things you're doing. As we go through these things, now would be a good time. Let me show you an example of what a management philosophy looks like. And your book gives you the details on the how-tos. That's why you have this beautiful blue book. And you're going, what? This is what it is? This is how it works? It will take you longer to think about this than to actually write your management philosophy. We're sharing with you Jason Adams's management philosophy. He's a 30-something-year-old trauma nurse. finishing up his RN. He is a reservist here in Illinois, and he has done some career shifting. The way he's put himself through school is with welding, so that kind of gives you a little of his background. He comes out of rural Illinois, and he talks about his personal philosophy and builds on to this. Your job, and this is just an example, and we're doing a quick flyby, is to be able to build the same thing. You're going, wait, I want to talk about this. You get a friend, you get a chance to think about this. We spend 3 to 5 pages kind of helping you build the thought process on what a management philosophy actually is. Like we say, it'll take you a lot longer to think about it than it will to actually write it. This is really short.
This defines who
Yep.
you are. So think about who you are, and as Anna indicated, ask a friend to read it. Does it sound like you? Or the friend may say, you should add this, or what about this? They may see some insights that you're not actually acknowledging yourself, because sometimes we hold back when we're writing about ourselves. So this is about you. Reflects who you are, what kind of individual you are.
Because there are certain things that are unique to you, that when I get you in an interview, what's going to make you different than that other person who has the same experience? If you click on My Management Philosophy, it will take us straight back. Brief bio. Every single one of you is going to get the chance to write a bio on yourself, because when you get into that employment situation, they all are going to write one for you. It's usually better to have one written about yourself, because professionally, the HR department is going to tell you who you are. Better for you to tell them who you are. By the way, it's worth your weight in gold to get a professional photo. In my case, I need all the help I can get, so I have my professionals who also touch mine up to make me look a little thinner, make me look a little taller, you know, all the things that girls want to have, you know, so we look good.
And unfortunately, she didn't share that with me before I put my photo in. So.
Well, yes, I did. You with me on this? Or he may have to pick up something that may have to be in burn units. For instance, he is a reservist, so I know for a fact that he has taken 2 extra courses during his reserve duty work with the trauma burn units. And so those are the kinds of things that have aligned for him to get positions. Strategically, folks, you plug in your brain and start looking at where you make better connects with the organizations.
Right. And keep in mind, Jason is an individual that's gone through a career transition.
Mm-hmm.
So these are all new goals that he's aiming for.
Mm-hmm. Plus, he's a nice guy, which isn't measurable, but the career goals are. Oh, dear beloved resume, we'll come back and have some fun with that. Work samples by key areas, that's part of planning. And each and every one of you have on your templates that go with this book a career planning tool. As you gather all your work samples, you should be mapping out what skills and competencies does this work sample show. Or flip it around. I have looked at the ideal job descriptions for the jobs I want. What skills and competencies are they looking for so that I can go out and get work samples to show that I have the ability to do this? Works both ways.
And also keep in mind, these work samples may come from some of your classroom work where you've worked in teams, where you've presented. I've heard so many say, I have a project I'm working on, I have a presentation I have to write, I have a research paper that is due. Those are your transferable skills. Those would be excellent work samples if you do not currently have work samples from the workforce. at this time.
Oh, and oh, by the way, those crazy instructors, of which I was one in my former life, do not put the 170-page project in here. You put the abstract in here, and full presentation available upon request, not the whole thing. Okay, you with me? No employer's going to read it unless they have something they're specifically looking for. Y'all with me on this? We don't do that. Think like an employer. Short, sweet, to the point, the measurable information.
Many of you in here have community service. Again, draw from your community service, identifying your work samples, identifying your skills. Community service, volunteer work, work that you are not being paid for is still valuable work from which you can draw experience. It also shows an employer that you are valued, that you value your community. So if you value the community, you're going to value the organization, the workforce. So those kind of activities, whether it's with your church, whether it's with the Boys and Girls Club, whatever organization you're working with, are of true value, and you should recognize your accomplishments through that act of volunteerism.
Oh, especially this time of year. Let me help you. This is so easy. In fact, we've got some special projects going on in my world right now where we are assisting transitioning folks on how do I go out and contract with nonprofits and community folks to get certain skills. In other words, I am a fill in the blank. I've got currently someone who is senior management with call centers. And this person has volunteered to head up the call bank for a
We have a special guest,
oops, you hadn't even introduced me.
Dr. Anna Graf Williams, which I mentioned last week. She's quite a character.
Oops.
So
She did.
you could be relaxed, but really do pick her brain because she has some insights working with business, working with employers, that is to your advantage to hear some of these tips, some of the information she collects, and go with it. So while you think, well, this may not apply to me right now in my current situation, it may someday apply to you, and you could reflect back and say, well, I know how to handle this, or I know how to market myself at this point in time. So as I say, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Anna Graf Williams.
Hello. Thank you. Here's the game plan. We want to do kind of a fast drive-through and overview career portfolios, because I think if you get a chance to look at the mechanics of career portfolios, then you kind of get a better place in your mind for how will you interact with the software. Because as you are going forward in this class, you actually have a couple key resources at your fingertips. Now, Dr. Wyatt here just happens to be one of the subject matter experts on career portfolios in the country too, because she's authored the book, Creating Your Career Portfolio at a Glance Guide for Professionals. And I think when you stop and look at career portfolios, a lot of times career portfolios have become this professional scrapbook to a lot of people. And so depending on when you say career portfolio, people will either frown at you or get a little nervous, or they're going to listen. Our approach as we go forward is to kind of combine the conversation today with what's measurable, how is it going to help you advance your career with career planning, and what can you do to get measurable objectives and more money. Anybody independently wealthy in here? Anybody? Because you don't need to be here, and you can have the rest of the day off, okay? We have an agreement between us that you don't need to be here, because the goal, amongst other things, is how do you use this tool to increase getting what you're worth. And so that's part of what this is about. Also, strategically, how can you use the portfolio as you advance your career to turn around and come back to an institution such as Parkland, such as a Big Ten university, and get life skill credit? Because all of you are going to go out here and be successful in your careers and acquire experience and need the chance to do that. So as you'll even find in the book that you have in front of you, there's a whole chapter that actually talks you through that process. So you have a key resource right there at your fingertips. So we're going to take a quick tour today through the concrete mechanics of career portfolio, but you too have an expert at your fingertips here who can actually coach you in the logistics of putting a portfolio together. And we're real fortunate to have had the last 5 years to work together on various projects. And actually we've done, I've lost track of how many
presentations.
Yes, and we have several more on the radar across the country that we're doing. So stay tuned for all the updates.
And another important fact to keep in mind is that everyone is at a different stage in your career. And so while we go through the process of developing a portfolio, it may mean different things to you at certain points in time in your life. So right now it may be for a job seeking. Later on it may be for evaluation. So keep in mind that this tool is a lifelong tool. It's not something you're going to do just for a grade, for a class, or just to secure a position. It's a tool that you want to maintain and keep up because there is value in the process, and we'll address that.
Oh, and then we've got to talk about work samples. It's kind of like collect now, sort later, only we're going to talk about how might you be a little more organized as you go through the magic sorting process. So we're going to advance our way through a couple things here. So as you've looked at this, the new job, the promotions, performance appraisals. You all know about performance appraisals. The employer remembers every mistake you've ever made in the last 6 weeks. Not all the good things you've done along the way. So your goal in having your career portfolio is to have the growth in your career and to be able to show them the achievement benchmarks as you go forward. Everybody with me on that? This is kind of like your secret weapon and a way to stay organized.
And it's your responsibility during a performance review or performance appraisal to make your accomplishments known, because those around you, they may not realize everything that you've done. And so again, this is a tool that you're going to be able to accomplish that, to have a dialogue going, not only the dialogue, but then also have the proof along with your responses during the appraisal. It will help with career advancement. And for those of you who've taken college courses where you're looking for additional credit for what you know, what you've learned in the workforce, it will also help with college credit, experiential learning, prior learning, assessment. Universities throughout the nation are offering that, and this portfolio will help you document that learning. There.
And we find most of you are so humble, you're not necessarily good at making known what your achievements are, because we haven't necessarily been brought up that way to say, oh, look at me, whereas there is a real structured way to go about presenting it in an organized way. So that's our goal here, is to be able to talk about that.
I'm going to have you shift over there.
Okay, because I'm always standing in her way. Oops.
Not all the way. Don't leave us.
There I go.
So if you want to start, we could look at what is included in a portfolio. And we have some screens. We also have a hard copy here to show you. And it's also in your book.
We've been doing career portfolios for the last 17 years inside my company. We've also been doing work with the Department of Labor and with several core industries. Now, here's what makes us different, and here's what's going to make your portfolio different. Structure. It is not just a copy of your resume and some work samples that are all slewn together in this nice, pretty book. It is something you put out there in a very structured, organized way with your work philosophy or management philosophy, your professional goals. A resume that shows everything you've been doing, and that actually becomes the index to your competencies and your skills, followed by work samples. Now, these work samples